On the 2nd of October 2025, the writer, broadcaster and self-proclaimed oddball loner Manchán Magan passed away at the age of just 55 after a battle with cancer. As famed for his eccentric lifestyle as he was for his copious output in and about the Irish language, he was one of the most influential cultural figures of his generation. In his youth, Manchán was greatly impacted by his grandmother, Sheila Humphreys, who told him stories of her involvement in Ireland's fight for independence. She spoke of seeing her uncle, the O'Rahilly, saying goodbye to his family as he set out to take part in the 1916 Rising, and as part of a documentary on Sheila's life, Manchán would read the letter that the O'Rahilly had written as he lay dying following a charge down Moore Street. Having been imprisoned for taking the anti-treaty side of the Irish Civil War, Sheila advised the young Manchán to learn two things: how to fire a gun and how to speak French in case he ever needed to go to Europe to get more guns. Though he had been brought up speaking Irish, Sheila had to bribe Manchán with sweets to keep him speaking it when he realised that none of his friends did. After studying Irish and history in UCD, he began travelling and in 1996 was living the life of a hippie dreamer, meditating in a cowshed high on the Himalayas. There he was tracked down by an up-and-coming Irish director, who just so happened to be his brother Ruan, with a proposal to make a documentary of Manchán's travels through India for the newly established Telefís na Gaeilge. Of the numerous documentaries that he would make in the decades ahead, Manchán is probably most well known for No Béarla, a series in which he examined the state of the Irish language in the early 2000s while also trying to use it to engage with various public and private organisations, challenging everyone from state bodies to mechanics and even a phone sex line, with little success.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Manchán Magan and so. Will to own Heidi? Hello? Will I noun?
At the time, however, some felt that No Béarla was preachy, divisive and overly negative. In light of these criticisms, Series 2 set out to be more hopeful, and this hope and optimism would be carried forward into his future works. To invoke the words of Flann O'Brien, Manchán was promoting the Irish language at a time when it was neither profitable nor popular. Some considered it to be backward or useless in the modern world, and the focus on rote learning for exams had left many with negative memories and an inability to form even a basic sentence after a decade and a half of compulsory study. Much of Manchán's later work sought to change these perceptions by encouraging an appreciation of the wider culture and the stories wrapped up in individual Irish words. From 2015 to 2018, his theatrical installation, Gaeilgeoirí, invited participants to adopt an endangered Irish word, which they would agree to nurture, nourish and take guardianship of. The resurgence of the Irish language in recent years led to a renewed interest in Manchán's older works and a demand for new ones, and from 2020 he wrote a number of books on the Irish language, on folklore, spirituality and the environment. Hearing crowds singing in Irish at a Kneecap Ceol concert, he left the band an excited voicemail. They would later work this into their song Drug-Dealing Pagans, in which Manchán featured as a deerskin-wearing druid, and he recorded his own cover of another of their songs to raise funds for a volunteer gym in a Palestinian refugee camp. Following his death, Kneecap described Manchán as the foremost cultural ambassador for our generation and instrumental in the resurgence of Irish language and culture. There were a few justified criticisms directed at Manchán, such as his tendency to over-exaggerate or over-spiritualise some of the definitions in his books on Irish words, but his passion for the language and culture was beyond question, and the outpouring of grief at the announcement of his death showed the regard he was held in, across and beyond the island of Ireland. Manchán's ancestor, the poet Eoghan O'Rahilly, had lived through the collapse of the Gaelic bardic tradition in the late 17th century and mourned its passing in his greatest work, Gile na Gile, a poem described as a vision of mysterious delight and knowledge which descends into a squalid, erotic nightmare of despair. In his own lifetime, Manchán would see negative attitudes towards Irish begin to change and its reputation grow, with works as Gaeilge headlining international music festivals and receiving Oscar nominations. For those looking to engage with the language, Manchán has left behind numerous ways of doing so, through his earlier travelogues or more recent documentaries in Irish, which can be found on the TG Cahir player and in some cases on YouTube, or through his writings, podcasts and interviews in English. In honour of his life, why not check out one of his videos on holy wells, his interview with President Michael D. Higgins about the Irish language, or pick up his book on 32 words for field and the Irish language's connection to the land. A descendant of Brehons and revolutionaries, Manchán Magan was a truly unique individual, and never has it been more accurate to say, Ní bheidh le héad a rís ann.